And towards the close of it, we will have a brief discussion where I think many of your other queries are going to be answered. So over to you, Roula.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Sen, for this. And what an amazing session, and what a great stories and energies in this session. And to be honest, I couldn't be more excited about our next achiever. And this is not only because he is the father of a very close friend, but because our next achiever is actually somebody who is very positive, who has a very fun spirit, and who's actually a very genuine soul. I think these are the words that will describe best Mr. Gopinath Nair. Anyone who knows him already can get to know his fun spirit. He's always smiling, he's always engaging, and he's always happy. But he is also somebody who has been a migrant, and who has been a migrant for a very long time, actually. For more than 35 years, I think, and we'll get to hear the real story. And he is somebody who is a self-made man, somebody who started from a humble beginning, but actually went on to work very hard and also to make it in life. So I'm very, very happy to be engaging in this session with Mr. Gopinath, and doing this as a dialogue, because we've always had these kinds of dialogues, and we thought it would be a very good idea if we actually do this dialogue one more time, but instead of doing it privately, why not do it publicly with everybody else and have the participation and have this kind of a fun energy and engagement. I mean, let me just start with this question, and here is my struggle. I think in our circles, you are really known as that. So how do we start by calling you for this session? Should I call you Mr. Nair? Should I call you Uncle? Should I call you Gopinath? How should I call you?
Just call me Gopi, Roula.
Gopi, perfect. Yeah. That is great. Okay, so Gopi, you've left to Qatar in the 1970s, I think. If I'm not mistaken, you left in 19...
Yes, in mid-70s, but I will go back to the history a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. That happened in 1967 when I was 17 years old. I migrated to Bombay. My first migration was to Bombay within India. Moved from my home state of Kerala after doing my high school education. And the purpose of migrating to Bombay was to look for a job and to find a livelihood. And, Bombay is the commercial hub of India. It's for anybody, it's easy to find a job. But with my minimum education, it was not easy. But believe me, I found one within 3 months. I landed in Bombay. That happened when I was 17 years old. I appeared for the first job interview. I was scared. And now I'm 71. I'm sitting in a webinar for the first time in my life. I'm not scared, but I'm with you and others. I just heard Victor. Wonderful stories. I have totally different stories to talk about. Well, the job I found in Bombay paid me $2 a month. And I worked in that organization for about 3 years, moved out, joined another organization where my starting salary was equivalent to something like $10. I spent 4 years in that company, for 4 to 5 years in that company. And my last salary in that company after almost 8 years was about $25 per month. That's not enough to have a decent or a comfortable life in Bombay. So I started asking myself, what next? But I found the answer. Rome is not built overnight. Have patience. Things will work out in your favor. Gain experience. You can go up the ladder and you can improve upon your living standards. Well, I used to stay when I was getting this, something like this $25 a month. I was staying with 6 others in a 1-room kitchen apartment, rented apartment, where I used to sleep on dining table to make space for others to sleep on the floor. So at that time, we are firm believers in God, and by the grace of God, I got an opportunity in the Middle East. And that,
I mean, so Gopi, can I ask you? So I mean, you were describing how life was back in India and your first job, and how difficult it was to get a job, and then there was this opportunity to go in the Middle East. And we all know how, I think this was in the 70s, 75. The Middle East was a different place, a difficult place, still is until today. I think a very difficult place.
Yeah.
So there must have been so many challenges there.
I had absolutely no clue about the country where I'm going, about the organization where I'm going to work. I had no clue about the terms and conditions under which I will be asked to work. But I told myself, if you don't take this opportunity, if you don't take that risk now, you will never be able to achieve something. So I took that risk, and the job opportunity originally came for my brother. And he gave it to me, saying that he is not interested to leave the country because he was very well employed and he was more than happy with his job. So the person who came
on.
Yeah. So the person and my brother was with a family man, he was settled in life. So he didn't want to disturb his family life as well as his well-established job. So the person who came to interview me from the company in the Middle East, he said, can we meet you at my place of residence in Bombay on a Sunday morning? I said yes. And then he wanted to meet me at 8 o'clock because he wanted to go out around 9:30, 10 after breakfast. So he said, let's meet at 8. So I went and found the place where he was living few minutes before 8 o'clock. But I waited outside this apartment where he was living for a few minutes and then went back to the door and rang the bell at 8 o'clock in the morning. This gentleman who opened the door, are you Gopinath? I said, yes. He looked at the watch and he said, you got the job.
So punctuality actually got you the job.
Punctuality, yes. So wow. I learned a lot from that minute. And it took about a month for the organization to process my employment visa and organize the contract and things like that. And I joined the company in 1976 in the Middle East. I joined the company as an executive secretary, and I was initially given an employment contract on a bachelor's status for a 2-year period. So it was like I knew my job is only for 2 years. I went there, and because of my hardships and in the living condition in Bombay, something I had in mind, I need to own a roof on my head, which I can call my home. And believe me, that ambition was fulfilled within the first 2 years of my employment in that organization. I owned an apartment in Bombay. This I could not.
If I can ask you this, okay, so within the first 2 years, you've gotten the first thing off the list, you owned the home. What was the second thing on your list?
Well, then I realized within the 2 years, I realized that the going is good. The employer was looking after me, and I was, of course, no strings attached. other than my brother and mother who lived in Mumbai. Then I thought, okay, you have a house to live, but you need to go back and look for a job. So I was not prepared for that. And the organization was prepared to give me continuous contract for indefinite period. So it's like every 2 years, they would give me a new contract with new terms, with new salaries and benefits and so on. So I continued for 32 years in that organization, renewing my contract on a 2-yearly basis. So I went there for 2 years, 30 years was bonus
30
for me.
years later, so you are still there. It's amazing.
Yes.
Gopi, can I ask you, I mean, 30 something years in Qatar, it's such a long time, and I am in Qatar right now, and we know how Qatar is. It's not necessarily the easiest place to settle in. If I can ask you to remember kind of 2 moments that imprinted on you, one, a negative moment, a very difficult moment that you've had to live, and another one that's really positive in those 30 something years, what would you say are these
the
2
negative followed by the positive within no time.
Really? Okay,
Yeah,
I'm curious now.
The negative was that I went there as a bachelor, and 4 years after working in that company, I got married, came back to India on holiday, got married. And my wife and son, I had a son, well, we had to wait only for a year to have a son. And it took for almost 7 years, my wife and son could not join me in Qatar. 7 years after marriage. They were living in India with my wife's parents, and I was called as a married bachelor living in Qatar. But then the reason when I asked for the family status, the family visa and things like that, the company said that you were hired on a bachelor status and therefore we cannot consider giving you a family status. So I continued for working as a married bachelor for 7 years. And the life we had was through hundreds of letters, exchange of photographs, telephone conversation, and so on. And every time when my wife opens a letter from me, she will look for the word visa, family visa in that letter. If she doesn't find that 2 words in that, then she will keep the letter to be read later on.
And were these love letters, Gopi? What was in those letters?
Yes, sort of, but we didn't have enough time to love each other, because we were living in 2 different countries. We spent, sort of a month's time every year when I used to come to India on holiday. So after 7 years, when I thought it's enough, I had a reasonable saving. I have a place to live in India. I can come back, live in my house, and find a job, and a good job. Till such time I find one, I have enough saving to live. And at that point in time, I took a call. I gave an ultimatum to the organization I worked. I said, give me family status or allow me to go home. And Roula, you won't believe, within 24 hours, I got my family status.
Wow.
Yeah. And in a month's time, my wife and son joined me in Qatar.
And this is kind of the highlight, right? This
is
the happiest.
The highlights. The 7 years of married life, living there as a bachelor, living on communication with my wife was the worst time. And all this has happened, I would say, overnight. And since then, there was no looking back. That was the best time of our life.
And I mean, I think there is something here to explain to everybody who's listening in, because you said to allow me to leave. And back then it was, you know, there were these exit visas and people were supposed to be, you know, to get permission in order to leave the work that, you know, where they used to work. And this is no longer the case, luckily. But just to also explain that this was really kind of the difficulties people had to face in Qatar and elsewhere in the region. So it's really fascinating to kind of, you know, hear that at that time, you know, you were able to push through, you know, being able to bring the family and all of this.
Yeah.
I mean, you spoke about family, Gopi, and I want to ask you this because you are somebody who, you know, started modestly, but retired in a very good position in the company where you worked. So you've really achieved something on the career front. But I want to ask you this as well, and I think you can give us a reflection. How, you know, our generation, we are like 30 something, we're very young, we're very driven, we want to make it in life, and we think of success maybe in terms of career. But what's your, you know, your experience in life? What do you think success is? Where should we look when we seek success and we are so driven in life?
Well, for me, in my career, for me, I started as an executive secretary, and in 30 plus years, I became the head of administration in that organization. I found it an achievement for myself. And when I grew up the ladder professionally, my salary also, my income level has also gone up. So that's one thing I take as an achievement. And then when you talk about success, I see my success through my son. Because I was able to work there and make a decent income, I was able to give the best of education to my son. And I actually wanted to make him an engineer, but he decided to take a different route. And he decided to become an international civil servant within the United Nations, working for the on the migrant rights, while inspired by my life in the Middle East as an immigrant. And he has proven himself, and he has been there within that UN system for last several years. And that's what I call my success too. But that success was not easy. We had our own failures, trials, tribulations, and whatnot. But I always believed nothing comes easy. You work hard for it, you get rewarded, and end of the day, be happy and keep smiling for the rest of your life. And that's what I try to do these days.
Amazing, amazing, Gopi, really. And I think we are all, you know, you are all very inspired by you. We are always inspired by your smile, inspired by your laugh. And I think it's just amazing to hear from you, you know, that the challenges, but also that, you know, there is light at the end of the tunnel in the sense of despite the challenges, despite the difficulties, you know, things work out. And if people, you know, persevere and, you know, have faith and have this positive energy that I think you kind of, you are contagious in that way. You know, you give a lot of hope and you give a lot of, you know, positivism. And I really thank you for this. It's been wonderful to listen to you, to listen to the story. So thank you for being with us and sharing the story. And hopefully we'll hear more stories, whether privately or publicly.
I should thank you and others, you know, who have been very kind to make me part of this webinar. It was as I said, my first experience. And I'm very excited about it. And thank you once again.
And we hope it won't be the last.
Hopefully, yes.